Previously on J. Cruz Project.
So I figured I could be ashamed of what I have, or I could be proud of it. And it'll maybe inspire some of you out there that you don't need the latest and greatest gear, that you can make music and make content with the gear that you actually have access to. So for my interface, I'm using the Presonus Audiobox i2.
I guess I'm a liar now. What's going on, everybody? My name is J. Cruz and welcome back to another video. First and foremost, I want to start off by thanking each and every one of you. If you don't know what I'm referring to, last week I uploaded a video which I'll link right up here. It's a pedalboard playthrough, but I didn't say anything. And in that video, I basically revealed that my family and I were sick with COVID. And yeah, it was pretty bad, but I just was so grateful to see all of the warm messages, people wishing us well and get well soon. And I just wanted to thank you all so much for the kind words and just the warm messages that you guys all sent over. Thank you from the very bottom of my heart. We are definitely feeling a lot better. Thank you. But now we need to address the hard truth here. Why am I such a liar? Just a few weeks ago, I uploaded this video, which is me giving you a tour of my current studio space. And in that video, I described how a lot of my recording gear is extremely outdated, but I didn't feel ashamed of it. I felt like, I was using everything to the best of my ability. And as long as I could still do that, I didn't feel the need to upgrade. It wasn't a priority. And then literally the very next week, I end up getting this beautiful piece of gear, the Presonus ioStation 24C. If you remember, I uploaded this video, I'll link it up here, where I discuss how I use the Presonus Faderport version 1. I did mention in that video that the Faderport, since it is an old model, was giving me a lot of problems. Some of the functions weren't working like they should. In fact, one of the functions that started going on me was the stop and play, and even the record button started going on me, which really, defeats the entire purpose of having a piece of gear like this in your studio. So since then, I've been looking online, occasionally searching Reverb for a used version 2 of the Faderport. This listing popped up with the ioStation 24 for a very good price, and I just felt like I needed to at the very least check it out. It was actually an upgrade to the interface that I was using. As some of you may know, I was using the Presonus Audiobox i2. And it served me well. I haven't had any complaints, as I mentioned in that studio rundown video. But when comparing it to the ioStation 24C, I realized this interface on the ioStation was a lot better. It was offering higher quality preamps or inputs for the interface, which is something that I had been desiring and the only reason why I ever considered switching. There was more headroom allotted, which has always been a little bit of the issue with some of the Presonus interfaces, just feeling like you had to really be sensitive with how much you were pushing your instrument into the interface. This ioStation apparently solved that problem. It was giving me the opportunity to record at a higher bit rate. So everything on paper was to tell me that essentially I could have a upgraded interface and finally replace my Faderport with a new version, and for a pretty decent price. I'm not gonna tell you how much I paid for it, but I will tell you this. A used version 2 Faderport was gonna cost me more money than what I paid for this 2-in-1 Faderport interface thing, and it's a better interface. It was a no-brainer. I had to get it. So I received the product, immediately decided to come into the studio, unbox it, and try this thing out. First impressions, I was pleased with the product. It seemed very sturdy. I was surprised, however, how large the product was in comparison, especially to the version 1 Faderport. You can see there's a significant size difference. But when you compare it to, for example, my old interface and the old Faderport together, I think it's kind of impressive that they were able to squeeze all of this technology into a relatively small format. And the fact that it's a little more oversized than I expected, I actually like that. I think it feels a little bit more sturdy in my hands. I like that it takes up a little more space, because my dream is to one day have an actual console in my studio one day. Even my home studio. Now, they did make some changes from version 1 Faderport to the version 2, but I think that their changes were actually more useful. Some of those changes I didn't quite vibe with, but it also didn't take me very long to adapt to the changes. So I started taking my studio apart, swapping stuff out. I just wanted to make sure it worked right, because I did buy it used. I downloaded the drivers. Everything is exciting. and then boom, sudden halt. It's not working. It's not working at all with my current DAW. See, I was using Studio One version 3, and this particular product was made for their newer versions, such as Studio One version 5. Not to mention, if you look at some of this footage, I wasn't looking too hot. It turns out that was the day that I started feeling symptomatic with COVID, and I essentially had to put a halt to the video. So here I am thinking, I got a steal. I was able to get an upgraded interface, and finally the newest version of the fader port, all in one unit for a very good price. I'm the man. I got away with it. Nah, not really. Looking on Presonus' website, I realized I either have to shell out $100 for a Studio One Artist. Studio One Professional is their full version. That's $400. Or actually pay monthly for their, I think they call it the Sphere. Or yeah, I may be saying that wrong, but it's their monthly subscription where you can get pretty much everything, which I actually think is not a bad deal. My wife does a very similar thing with her photography editing material, so I will probably eventually do that, but I just wasn't financially prepared to upgrade everything like this. Luckily for me, I was able to download their free version, which is Studio 5 Prime, and at the very least I was able to make sure that the ioStation 24C was operating correctly. Then of course I needed to know, did this actually make a difference? It definitely looks nice and it feels good to have this on my studio desk, but did it make a difference to the sound? Because that's what really made me pull the trigger, the fact that I was going to get an upgraded interface. So what I did was I recorded one last track using my old interface, the Presonus Audio Box i2, recorded a quick little guitar part. Then I switched everything over and recorded the same guitar part, but now using the ioStation 24C. Here are the results. I'm not 100% sure how much of a difference you're going to be able to hear while watching this on YouTube with YouTube compression and the way all this stuff works, but I certainly heard a night and day difference. More so than hearing it, I actually even felt it. Everything from the latency to just how the sound was just bigger. I recorded mono, but I used 2 tracks and I split my guitar. I pan it left and right hard. And I noticed a considerable difference between left and right, and I don't think I ever noticed it nearly as much as I do now with the new interface. So clearly there was a major difference, and I'm super stoked with how that difference is being portrayed now. I feel like there is this more kind of higher definition version of my sound that I'm hearing for the first time in this studio, and I'm super excited about it. Now let's answer the question, who is this interface for? Is it for everyone? Is it catered to a specific kind of person or engineer, producer, or songwriter? And are there any cons? First and foremost, I think this is a great interface that will work great for anybody who would decide to use it. But of course, there are limitations to interfaces like this. 2-channel interfaces don't go very far for people in major recording studios. But for someone like me who never legitimately records more than 2 tracks at a time, this is perfect. I also think it's really perfect for the traveling musician or traveling producer or songwriter. Now everywhere you go, you can literally not just only have an interface, but an actual console, like a control system. It's an amazing tool, and I think it would be a great upgrade for a lot of traveling producers out there. But are there any cons? Well, on the subject of the traveling producer, as I mentioned before, this is a little bit larger, and I think that you may find yourself saying this is a little bit oversized to travel with. But I think for what you get out of it, it's worth it. And I would certainly consider traveling with it everywhere that I go. The other con for me, and this may be because I'm completely misinformed, so I'm gonna need your help. Most interfaces allow you to tell the input or the preamp what you're feeding it. So in this particular case, it could be a guitar input, which is an instrument input, or a line input. Then you have the ability to send those lines phantom power. The odd thing about this interface is that it seems that you cannot tell this interface which line you want to change or send phantom power to. That means, for example, if I wanted to mic and record a cabinet with a ribbon mic and maybe a condenser mic, and the condenser mic needed phantom power, but I certainly don't want to send phantom power to that ribbon mic, that could be an issue. I don't know, and I don't trust that it's not going to send the ribbon mic phantom power. So I'm not sure if there's something that I'm not understanding, but that's probably one of the major flaws of this interface, and something that I definitely would have wanted to change if it were up to me. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's definitely different from my last one. I didn't speak at all in my last video, and I spoke a whole lot in this video. I want to remind everyone that I am this close to breaking 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't done so and you're here for the first time, maybe you're watching because of last week's video, welcome, but please consider subscribing to the channel. Do the rest of the things that help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the new interface, and do you think it would be an upgrade or something you would like to see in your studio? While you're doing so, feel free to check out some of the affiliate links in the description box. There's also a link where you can donate to the channel if you choose to do so. Guys, thank you so much again for your support. Thank you for watching, and until next week.